Before we begin today's video, I'd like to give out a shout out to our sponsor. Just kidding. Today is Halloween and would mark 40 years since Voldemort went to Godric's Hollow and tried to kill Harry as a baby. The First Wizarding War ended after Voldemort's defeat, and some Death Eaters were sent to Azkaban for their sadistic crimes. For this video, I'll be listing all the Death Eaters in the books and movies. Before I begin, I feel that I should list a few rules. A Death Eater has to be considered a Death Eater and has to have a dark mark on their forearm, so no Vincent Crabbe, Nurse Malfoy, Fenrir Greyback, or Dolores Umbridge. If a character used an unforgivable curse such as Imperio, Crucio, or Vada Kedavra, it still wouldn't count, otherwise we'd have to add Harry Potter. Anyone who is under the Imperious Curse won't be considered a Death Eater since it's a sort of hypnosis, so I'll be excluding Stan Schoenpike, Pius Thickness, and Victor Crumb from this video. I also don't consider the Cursed Child or Hogwarts Mystery canon, so the Lee and Snide families will be excluded as well. With that said, here are the origins and listings of the Death Eaters. Avery Jr. First on the list, Avery Jr. was sworn to Slytherin House around the 1970s and was friends with multiple future Death Eaters during school, two of which were Severus Snape and Mulciber. His sense of humor was described by Lily Evans as sadistic. After graduating, Avery Jr. became a Death Eater like his father. After Voldemort's downfall on October 31st, 1981, Avery was taken into custody but pleaded the Imperious Curse. He wasn't sent to Azkaban and didn't search for his master, believing him to be finished. In June of 1995, Voldemort returned and summoned the Death Eaters. Avery Jr. was one of the few who showed up and was the first to crack and grovel at Voldemort's feet, pleading for his and his friends' forgiveness. Voldemort used the Cruciatus Curse, wanting 13 years' worth of repayment. Later that year, Voldemort wanted a prophecy involving him and Harry Potter. Avery Jr. made an attempt to retrieve it, but failed and was tortured by Voldemort. He fought at the Battle of the Department of Mysteries and was paired with Walden Macnair. What happened to him during the battle is unknown, but he was arrested and taken to Azkaban for his crimes. He escaped prison in 1996 and fought in the Second Wizarding War. His fate is unknown. Regulus Black. Younger brother of Sirius, Regulus was born in 1961 and was the favorite child of his parents, Orion and Walpurga Black. The reason was because he shared his parents' views towards blood purity and was sorted to Slytherin, unlike Sirius, a Gryffindor. Regulus became a seeker for his house Quidditch team and admired Voldemort and his views, judging by the newspaper articles taped to his wall. At the age of 16, he received a dark mark on his left forearm. Shortly afterwards, Regulus considered on leaving. After Voldemort asked to borrow his house elf Kreacher in 1997, Kreacher came back, escaping his death using house elf magic. He explained to his master what happened, and Regulus pieced together that Voldemort had a Horcrux. He created a fake copy of Slytherin's locket, and in case Voldemort would check on it in the future, he stashed a note inside for him to read. Under Regulus's orders, Kreacher took him to the cave where the Horcrux was hidden. Arriving at the island inside, Regulus told Kreacher to switch the lockets after he drank the Emerald Potion, as well as to leave him behind and destroy the locket. Regulus drank the potion, which relived him through his worst memories. Dehydrated drastically, Regulus crawled over to the lake's water to get the only drink of liquid nearby. Once he touched the water, he was then dragged underneath by it in fury. Regulus Arcturus Black drowned, and his parents, who weren't aware what he had done, declared him missing. Alecto Carrow. Alecto, who is described as a stocky woman, is the sister of Amycus, and the two were both sworn to Slytherin. After Voldemort's downfall in 1981, Alecto didn't search for him since she believed him to be finished. She and her brother avoided imprisonment in Azkaban. After Voldemort's rebirth in June of 1995, Alecto was forgiven for not looking for her master. She was fairly active during the Second Wizarding War. In June of 1997, Alecto and her brother participated in the Battle of the Astronomy Tower and were at the scene of Albus Dumbledore's death. On September 1st, Alecto was appointed the new Muggle Studies teacher and, like her brother, was in charge of discipline. All teachers were obliged to report any rule-breaking students to one of the two. Her ways of discipline ranges from physical beatings to the Cruciatus Curse. Instead of teaching about Muggles, culture, and science, Alecto would lecture of how Muggles are filth and that the natural order is being re-established. On the 1st of May, 1998, Voldemort feared that Harry would suspect that one of his Horcruxes was connected to Ravenclaw House. Under his orders, Alecto stationed herself in the Ravenclaw common room and kept guard. Later that night, Harry, accompanied by Luna Lovegood, entered the common room and Alecto pressed the dark mark on her forearm. Acting fast, Luna stuns Alecto, knocking her unconscious. Later, Professor McGonagall tied her and her brother up and left them in the room. She was arrested and was sent back to Azkaban. Amycus Carrow. Amycus is the brother of Alecto and was sorted into Slytherin House. After Voldemort's downfall, he and his sister did search for him. After Voldemort's rebirth 13 years later, he and his sister were forgiven. Amycus and Alecto were fairly active during the Second Wizarding War. He was involved in the Battle of the Astronomy Tower in 1997 and witnessed Dumbledore's death. A few months later, on September 1st, Amycus was appointed the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. His subject focused on nothing but the dark arts and taught the 3 unforgivable curses and Fenfire. He, as well as his sister, were in charge of discipline, and every staff member at Hogwarts was obliged to report the troublemaking students to him or his sister. His methods of punishment included physical violence and having his students practice the Cruciatus Curse on first years. On May 1st, 1998, Voldemort stationed Alecto in the Ravenclaw common room in case Harry was going to try and get in there. When Harry and Luna arrived, Alecto pressed the dark mark on her forearm to summon her brother and Voldemort. Amycus ran up the stairs in Ravenclaw Tower and struggled to solve the doorknocker's riddle. An irritated Professor McGonagall helped him get into the common room, where he found his sister unconscious on the floor and Harry Potter nowhere to be seen. Amycus proved to be cowardly since he planned the idea of telling Voldemort that the Ravenclaws knocked her out and pressed the dark mark instead, knowing full well that they would be punished by Voldemort himself. McGonagall stood in his way, resulting on Amycus insulting her and spitting in her face. Harry then stepped out from underneath his invisibility cloak and cast a Cruciatus Curse on him. He was knocked out, and McGonagall left the Carrows tied up in the common room. After the Battle of Hogwarts, Amycus was sent to Azkaban. Crabbe Sr. First name unknown, this member of the pure-blooded Crabbe family became a Death Eater at an unknown time. In 1981, he had a son named Vincent and didn't search for Voldemort after his downfall. Crabbe was one of the few who showed up after Voldemort's rebirth. He was called out directly for his disloyalty, but was forgiven. In 1996, Crabbe participated in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries and was paired up with Rabastan Lestrange. He and Lestrange battled Harry, Hermione, and Neville in the Time Room. Crabbe was arrested but was broken out of Azkaban in 1997. On the 2nd of May, 1998, Crabbe would lose his son Vincent during the Battle of Hogwarts after the Fenfire curse backfired on him. After Voldemort's death later that day, he was more than likely imprisoned in Azkaban. Barty Crouch Jr. Barty was born in the early 60s and was a member of the Crouch family, one of the oldest pure-blooded families in Great Britain. His father's goal in rounding up dark wizards prevented him from spending any time with them. During Barty's time at Hogwarts, he had achieved 12 OWLs and took dark mark in his late teens. After Voldemort's downfall in Halloween of 1981, Barty was one of the few who attempted to look for him. He was arrested with Bellatrix, Rodolphus, and Rabastan Lestrange for the later infamous torture of Aurors Frank and Alice Longbottom with the Cruciatus Curse, which drove them into permanent insanity. Barty pleaded innocent, but his father subjected him to life imprisonment in Azkaban, claiming that he has no son. Barty was in poor health when he was brought in and screamed for his mother for the first few days. In 1982, his mother's health deteriorated drastically from the stress of her son being imprisoned, as did Barty Jr. from the depression the Dementors were inflicting on him. Due to Barty Crouch Sr.'s high status in the ministry, he and his wife visited the prison as Mrs. Crouch's dying wish. Persuading her husband, Mrs. Crouch and Barty Jr. switched roles under the disguise of Polyjuice Potion. Mrs. Crouch died in his cell a short while later and was buried outside the prison, as Crouch Sr. kept their son under the Imperius Curse. Winky the house elf was assigned as his caretaker and often persuaded Crouch to treat him for his good behavior. Barty Jr. was taken by Crouch Sr. and Winky to the 1994 Quidditch World Cup under an invisibility cloak. Barty broke free from the Imperius Curse and snatched a wand sticking out of a spectator's pocket. After the World Cup ended, Death Eater members crashed to camping grounds and tortured the Muggle family. Furious that they escaped trial, Barty cast the dark mark into the sky to scare them off. Ministry officials fired stunning spells through the woods, crisscrossing the area where Barty and Winky had been, rendering the two unconscious. Winky was dismissed for being found with Harry's wand, which proved to have cast the dark mark. After everyone left, Crouch Sr. submitted his son under the Imperius Curse again and took him home. No sooner than later, Voldemort and Pettigrew showed up at their home. Voldemort broke the curse off of Barty and recast it on Crouch Sr. Voldemort then assigned Barty the task to rig the Triwizard Tournament and bring Harry to him. Throughout the Goblet of Fire story, Barty imprisoned Alastor Moody and took the post for Defense Against the Dark Arts. Despite his ulterior motives, his lessons were actually useful. He entered Harry's name into the tournament on Halloween and made sure to make the 3 tasks easy enough for him to win and touch the rigged portkey. In May of 1995, Crouch Sr. broke from the Imperious Curse but was in a bad mental state. Fearing that he'd reveal Barty's plan, Barty killed his father, transfigured his corpse into a bone, and buried him outside of Hagrid's hut. After Harry came back alive from Little Hangleton in June, Barty ushered Harry from the panicking crowd and questioned if his Death Eater allies were punished for disloyalty. After explaining that he had put Harry's name into the Goblet of Fire, Barty attempted to murder him before Dumbledore, McGonagall, and Snape arrived. Under a truth serum, he confessed that his father had smuggled him out of Azkaban and what he had done for the entire school year. Feeling in danger, Cornelius Fudge summoned a Dementor as his personal bodyguard when visiting Hogwarts. Out of his control, the Dementor swooped down and gave Barty the Dementor's kiss, sucking out his soul and destroying Harry's only evidence that Voldemort returned. Barty died soon after his soul was taken, and the pure-blooded Crouch family was now extinct. Antonin Dolohov. Pale and twisted-faced Dolohov is probably one of the 3 most powerful and dangerous Death Eaters to date. He became one of Voldemort's followers sometime after 1970 and participated in the murdering of Gideon and Fabian Prewett, Molly Weasley's brothers. He was sentenced to Azkaban after Voldemort's downfall in 1981. In 1996, Dolohov was broken out of prison along with the other Death Eaters. He fought in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries and was paired with Jugson. In July of 1997, Dolohov once again escaped Azkaban and was present at the Death Eater meeting at Malfoy Manor. He and Thorfinn Rowle attacked the trio after they said Voldemort's name, which was tabooed. The fight was short but fierce, and Hermione hit Dolohov with a full-body bind curse before she modified his and Rowle's memories. During the Battle of Hogwarts, he dueled Dean Thomas and Pavati Patil. He later dueled and killed Remus Lupin. After Voldemort told his followers to retreat and gave Harry 1 hour to turn himself in, Dolohov and Corban Yaxley stood guard outside the Death Eater camp. When the battle later resumed, Dolohov was defeated by Phileas Flitwick, a former dueling champion. Antonin Dolohov's fate is unknown. Gibbon. This Death Eater was active during the Second Wizarding War. In 1997, he participated in the Battle of the Astronomy Tower. He cast a dark mark above the castle grounds and didn't like waiting at the top of the tower for Albus Dumbledore alone. He abandoned his position and fought in the battle, where he was hit with a stray killing curse cast by Thorfinn Rowle. Goyle Sr. First name unknown, Goyle became a Death Eater at an unknown time and had a son in 1981 named Gregory. The same year on Halloween, Voldemort's killing curse backfired and Goyle believed him to be finished, therefore not looking for him. Goyle's son would be educated at Hogwarts in 1991 and would be sorted into Slytherin. In 1995, Goyle was one of the few who showed up after Voldemort's rebirth. Voldemort expressed his disappointment to both him and Crabbe, though forgave them nonetheless. Goyle's action afterwards is unknown, but he was one of the Death Eaters named in the Quibbler in 1996, along with Avery Jr., Macnair, Malfoy, Crabbe, and Nott Sr. Jugson. Jugson is a Death Eater who was fairly active during the Second Wizarding War. He participated in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries and was paired with Antonin Dolohov. He was hit with a full-body bind curse by Harry Potter but managed to break it and continue fighting. He was arrested after the battle and was sent to Azkaban. He more than likely was broken out in 1997 and participated in the Battle of Hogwarts. His fate is unknown. Igor Karkaroff. Karkaroff became a Death Eater in his youth during the First Wizarding War and helped Antonin Dolohov torture countless Muggles. He was an acquaintance of Severus Snape and was later captured by Aleister Moody and was briefly imprisoned in Azkaban. Shortly after Voldemort's downfall on Halloween, Karkaroff appeared before the Council of Magical Law offering information in exchange for leniency. He claimed to be remorseful for his crimes and gave the names of several of his comrades, all of whom were either killed, imprisoned, or switched sides. However, he was able to satisfy the council by submitting Augustus Rookwood's name. He was released from Azkaban and became immensely unpopular within the Death Eaters at Azkaban. Some point later in his life, Karkaroff became headmaster at Durmstrang Institute and was seen by both students and parents as unprincipled and egotistical, leading many parents to withdraw their students from the school. In 1994, Karkaroff traveled to Hogwarts in Great Britain to supervise the students in the Triwizard Tournament. Throughout the school year, Karkaroff made sure to get Victor Crumb into first place. In June of 1995, Karkaroff felt a dark mark burn on his forearm since Voldemort wanted him summoned at his side immediately. Karkaroff fled for his life, knowing that his betrayals 13 years ago would not be unnoticed. Because Voldemort and the Death Eaters were trying to keep a low profile and build up their army in secret, Karkaroff survived an entire year. Around July of 1996, Karkaroff was tracked down to a shack somewhere in the north and was killed for his betrayal. A dark mark was cast into the sky above the shack, and his death was revealed to Harry on his 16th birthday. If none of you know who this bad bitch is, then you clearly haven't seen any of the Harry Potter books or movies. Bellatrix is the daughter of Cygnus and Regulus Black, the cousin of Sirius and Regulus, and the eldest sister of Nerissa Malfoy and Andromeda Tonks. Throughout the First and Second Wizarding Wars, she proved to be the most loyal and dangerous Death Eater to Voldemort. She was born in 1951 and was sorted into Slytherin House. She, as well as her family, cut ties off with Andromeda after she married Muggle-born Ted Tonks. Later in life, out of obligation towards her family's pure-blooded traditions, she married Rodolphus Lestrange, who she didn't have any affection towards. She and her husband would become Death Eaters after Voldemort's rise to power. After Halloween of 1981, Bellatrix participated in the brutal torturings of Frank and Alice Longbottom. She was sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban and claimed that Voldemort would return and would reward her for her loyalty. In 1996, Bellatrix broke out of prison along with 10 other Death Eaters. She participated in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries and sent a spell, knocking Sirius Black through the Death Veil, killing him. She was the only Death Eater who managed to escape the Ministry of Magic. A few months later, Bellatrix accompanied Nerissa to Spinner's End. Nerissa pleaded for Severus Snape to look after Draco Malfoy, who was assigned to the task to kill Dumbledore. Shocking Bellatrix, Snape ordered her to bind him and Nerissa with the unbreakable vow. In 1997, Bellatrix was assigned to lock the Sword of Gryffindor and her family vault at Gringotts, as well as Hufflepuff's Cup, a Horcrux of Voldemort's. She was, however, unaware that the Sword of Gryffindor was a fake copy. Months later, during the Easter holiday, Snatchers had brought the trio to Malfoy Manor. Upon seeing the sword, Bellatrix panicked, assuming that they had broken into her vault and had taken the cup as well. The trio escaped Malfoy Manor, but not before Bellatrix could stab Dobby, the house elf, with a dagger. She and her relatives were punished for letting them escape. Because of her fear that they had taken something else, Harry correctly suspected that she was keeping a Horcrux in her Gringotts vault. At the end of April, Hermione used Bellatrix's hair for Polyjuice Potion, and the trio stole Hufflepuff's cup. Later that day, on the 1st of May, Bellatrix participated at the Battle of Hogwarts and murdered her niece, Nymphadora Tonks. When the battle resumed after Voldemort killed Harry, Bellatrix dueled Hermione Granger, Luna Lovegood, and Ginny Weasley all at once, being the last Death Eater standing. After nearly killing Ginny with a killing curse, Molly Weasley dueled the remaining Death Eater, casting an unknown curse and killing Bellatrix Lestrange. Rabastan Lestrange. Rabastan is a brother of Rodolphus and brother-in-law of Bellatrix. He attended Hogwarts and was sworn to Slytherin. After graduating, Rabastan became a Death Eater. After Voldemort's downfall, Rabastan participated in the torturing of Frank and Alice Longbottom and was sentenced to life in Azkaban. He later escaped in 1996 along with Rodolphus, Bellatrix, and 7 others. He was present during the Battle of Department of Mysteries and was paired with Crabbe Sr. in the Time Room. He was sent back to Azkaban but escaped again soon afterwards. His fate during the Second Wizarding War is unknown. Rodolphus Lestrange. Brother of Rabastan and wife of Bellatrix, Rodolphus was sworn to Slytherin House during his time at Hogwarts. He married Bellatrix after graduating, and they both took the Dark Mark. After Voldemort's downfall, Rodolphus tortured the Longbottoms with his brother, wife, and Death Eater comrade Barty Crouch Jr., who was sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban. Rodolphus escaped prison in 1996 along with 9 other Death Eaters. He participated in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries and was paired with Bellatrix in the Space Room. He was taken back to prison, but his wife eluded capture. He escaped again in 1997 and would lose his wife in the Battle of the Hogwarts. He was presumably imprisoned again. Walden Macnair. Macnair had joined the Death Eaters in the 70s and committed several crimes. He, however, didn't search for his master after his downfall and escaped trial, stating that he had been under the influence of the Imperious Curse. During the 90s, he would take the position as executioner for committee for the disposal of dangerous creatures. In 1994, he was assigned by the Ministry to execute Buckbeak, a hippogriff. With the help of time travel, Harry and Hermione saved Buckbeak, leaving Macnair furious. In June of 1995, Voldemort returned and summoned the Death Eaters. He expressed his disappointment in Macnair for his disloyalty, though he forgave him, saying that he will have more human victims to kill instead of animals. Accompanied by another Death Eater, Macnair was set the task to recruit the Giants, a task Hagrid and Maxime were doing as well. Unlike Hagrid, Macnair successfully rallied the Giants' support. He later killed Broderick Bode on Christmas Eve by usage of Devil's Snare in order to silence him. A few months until June, Macnair participated in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries and was paired with Avery Jr. Macnair was arrested and was sent to Azkaban. He later escaped in 1997 and fought in the Battle of Hogwarts. He was grabbed by Rubeus Hagrid in the Great Hall and was slammed up against the wall, rendering him unconscious. He was sent back to Azkaban. Draco Malfoy. Born in 1981, Malfoy didn't become a Death Eater until 1996, before he began his 6th year at Hogwarts. He was sworn to Slytherin, and through his 6th year, he was assigned the task to assassinate Albus Dumbledore. What he wasn't aware of was that this was a punishment for his father, since Lucius failed to retrieve the prophecy a few months prior. Though Malfoy believed he could do it, and felt honored to be assigned such a task by Voldemort himself, he didn't have the strength or courage to kill Dumbledore, resulting in Ronald Weasley being poisoned instead, and Katie Bell being cursed by a dangerous necklace. After months of work in the Room of Requirement, Malfoy managed to fix the Vanishing Cabinet and smuggle a few Death Eaters and Fenrir Greyback into the castle. Malfoy then cornered Dumbledore at the top of the astronomy tower and disarmed him. Despite having Dumbledore at one point, he still couldn't build up the strength to kill him. Severus Snape appeared at the scene and finished Malfoy's task for him. In 1997 and 1998, he and his parents would dramatically drop through the Death Eater ranks. Around the Easter holiday, the trio were caught and brought to Malfoy Manor. Unable to identify Harry since his face was briefly deformed, Malfoy was asked to identify if it was Harry or not. He recognized him, but lied, saying that it wasn't Harry. Later, Harry would disarm Malfoy, and the trio escaped from Malfoy Manor along with a few other prisoners. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Malfoy followed the trio into the Room of Requirement, along with Vincent Crabbe and Gregory Goyle. It led to a showdown which caused the room to catch fire and Crabbe losing his own life. Harry, Ron, and Hermione saved Malfoy and Goyle. This action would later reward Harry when Nerissa Malfoy asked if her son was alive. Nerissa then lied to Voldemort, claiming that Harry was officially dead. Malfoy survived the Battle of Hogwarts and witnessed Harry and Voldemort's final showdown. Harry explained that the Elder Wand didn't belong to Voldemort and that its true master was Malfoy since he disarmed him at the Astronomy Tower in 1997. But because Harry had disarmed Malfoy back in April, the Elder Wand now answered to him. With the Elder Wand refusing to kill its master, Voldemort was killed and the Second Wizarding War had ended. Malfoy and his parents weren't sent to Azkaban. 19 years later, Draco Malfoy would accompany his wife Astoria Greengrass and their son Scorpius to plot for 9 3/4. Lucius Malfoy. Born in September of 1953, Lucius was the son of Abraxas and came from a very wealthy and influential family. He honored his family's tradition by being sorted into Slytherin House upon his arrival at Hogwarts. A favorite of Slughorn's, Lucius became a prefect in his 5th year and witnessed the sorting of Severus Snape, Lily Potter, and the Marauders. After he graduated, he married his former classmate Nerissa Malfoy and became a very well-connected man. Later in life, he was branded with the Dark Mark on his forearm, becoming a Death Eater. By the height of the First Wizarding War, Lucius had risen ambitiously through the ranks and became a second in command. In 1980, Nerissa gave birth to their only son Draco, and around the same time was entrusted with Voldemort's old school diary. The year afterwards, on Halloween, Voldemort's own killing curse would rebound and defeat Voldemort. Worried about his reputation and the fear of Azkaban, Lucius pleaded innocent and that he was under the influence of the Imperius Curse. He didn't look for Voldemort after, and sometime later, his father died from dragonpox. Lucius became a member of the Hogwarts Board of Governors and greatly despised Dumbledore, so much so that in 1992, a year after Draco attended Hogwarts, he smuggled Voldemort's diary into the castle to open the Chamber of Secrets and kill Muggleborns. His plan backfired and no Muggleborns were killed, and the Basilisk of Slytherin was killed by Harry. Lucius was then fired from the Board of Governors. When Voldemort returned to power on June of 1995, Lucius was one of the few who answered his call. He led the Death Eaters in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, but failed to retrieve the prophecy after it was destroyed. He was arrested and was sent to Azkaban. His status both in the Ministry and within the Death Eater ranks completely fell. As punishment for his failure at retrieving the prophecy, Voldemort assigned his son Draco the task to kill Dumbledore the following year, knowing full well that he wouldn't be able to do it. In 1997, Lucius was broken out of prison as well as the other Death Eaters who were caught in the Ministry of Magic. His home was used as a base of operations and he was nothing more than a servant. The year after, on May 1st, the Battle of Hogwarts had begun, and Lucius showed more concern for his son rather than Voldemort's cause. Instead of fighting, he and his wife ran through the battling crowd for their son. They witnessed Voldemort's defeat and the end of the Second Wizarding War. Due to Nerissa lying to Voldemort about Harry being dead, Lucius and his family weren't sentenced to Azkaban. Mulciber Jr. Mulciber was a Slytherin student at Hogwarts and enjoyed playing sadistic pranks with Avery, which involved the dark arts. He was friends with Severus Snape, which upset Lily Evans. Mulciber eventually joined the Death Eaters along with his friends Avery and Snape. He was caught at one point and was imprisoned at Azkaban. In 1996, Mulciber escaped along with 9 others. He participated in the Department of Mysteries and was paired with Lucius Malfoy. After the battle, he was captured once more, but was broken out again in 1997. His fate after the Second Wizarding War is unknown. Mulciber Sr. Not much is known about this Mulciber, but it is safe to say that there were 2 Mulcibers Death Eaters, given how one attended Hogwarts during Voldemort's time, and the other attended Hogwarts during Snape's time, years afterwards. The 2 Mulcibers might even be father and son. Mulciber was one of the 4 Death Eaters who wished Voldemort good luck on getting the Defense Against the Dark Arts position, the others being Nott, Rosier, and Dolohov. If he was alive during the Second Wizarding War, he might have participated in the Battle of Hogwarts. Nott Sr. First name unidentified, Nott was a classmate of Voldemort's and was one of the earliest Death Eaters. Nott was a friend and pupil of Horace Slughorn's and was one of the few who visited Hogsmeade to wish Voldemort good luck on getting the Defense Against the Dark Arts position. In 1981, Nott became elderly and had a son named Theodore. After Halloween, he avoided trial and wasn't sent to Azkaban. He believed Voldemort to be finished and didn't look for him. Sometime afterwards and before Theodore attended Hogwarts in 1991, Nott would lose his life to old age. Nott was one of the few who showed up after Voldemort's rebirth and claimed to be his most faithful servant. Nott was forgiven, along with his friends Crabbe, Goyle, and Lucius. The year after, Nott participated in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries and grabbed a hold of Harry. He was then stunned by Hermione Granger and was left severely injured. The group leader, Lucius, told him to leave Nott behind, stating that his injuries would compare nothing to Voldemort losing the prophecy. Nott was arrested and was sent to Azkaban. His loss of status prevented Theodore from being invited to the Slug Club, even though Nott was a favorite of Slughorn's. Nott was broken out of prison and fought in the Battle of Hogwarts. His fate is unknown. Peter Pettigrew. A rare example of an evil Gryffindor, Pettigrew attended Hogwarts in the early 60s and became friends with James Potter, Remus Lupin, and Sirius Black. His nickname at Hogwarts was Wormtail, and he became one of the manufacturers of the Marauders map. Years later, Pettigrew became an animagus, with his form being a rat. After graduating, Pettigrew along with his friends joined the Order of the Phoenix led by Albus Dumbledore. Due to his goal of being within a group of powerful people, he switched sides and became a Death Eater, though still played the role as a member of the Order for spy reasons. After a prophecy was made involving Voldemort being defeated, Voldemort marked the Potters family for death. To protect James, Lily, and Harry, Dumbledore told them to go into hiding. As an attempt to misdirect Voldemort and the Death Eaters, Sirius denied being the Potter's secret keeper and suggested Pettigrew, someone Voldemort would least expect. This last-minute change was only known by the 4 of them, James, Sirius, Lily, and Pettigrew. On Halloween night of 1981, Pettigrew revealed the Potter's location, breaking their protection charm. Voldemort visited Godric's Hollow and killed Pettigrew's friends, James and Lily. To everyone's surprise, his attempt to kill Harry backfired and Voldemort was defeated. Fearing that the Death Eaters would go after him for leading their master to his defeat, Pettigrew framed his friend Sirius Black and transformed into a rat, killing 13 Muggles in the process. From then on, Pettigrew remained as the Weasley family's pet rat, Scabbers, until 1994 when Sirius exposed him to the trio and Remus Lupin in the Shrieking Shack. Pettigrew escaped and helped Voldemort return to power on June of 1995. The requirements to give Voldemort a new body required him to cut off his own hand. Soon afterwards, Voldemort replaced it with a hand made from silver with unique powers of strength for the help he provided all year. On March of 1998, the trio was captured and taken to Malfoy Manor, where Harry, Ron, and Dean Thomas were locked in the cellar while Hermione was being interrogated. Upon hearing a noise, Pettigrew was ordered to go into the cellar and investigate. After opening the door, Harry and Ron tackle him. Pettigrew attempts to strangle Harry as Harry reminds him that he spared him back in the Shrieking Shack. After feeling its owner hesitate to continue strangling him, the silver hand reached up to Pettigrew's throat and began strangling him instead. What happened to his corpse is unknown. Pyrites. Pyrites was only mentioned in the early draft of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. He was a dandy wizard who would wear white gloves often covered in blood. In the draft, he would meet Sirius Black following Halloween of 1981. His character, as well as the scene, was scrapped entirely. Augustus Rookwood. Rookwood worked in the Department of Mysteries as an unspeakable, but turned spy for Voldemort during the First Wizarding War, giving him information from inside the Ministry itself. Rookwood was apparently outgoing and charismatic, according to the information Ludo Bagman provided at his hearing. Being one of the names Igor Karkaroff turned in for his release in 1981, Rookwood was investigated and was arrested. In 1996, he was broken out of Azkaban along with 9 others and was a valuable source of information regarding the prophecy referring Harry and the department it was being kept in. He participated in the Battle of Department of Mysteries and was the only one not paired with anybody. Rookwood was captured and locked back in Azkaban, but he escaped in 1997. During the Battle of Hogwarts, after Fred Weasley was killed in an explosion, Percy Weasley chased after Rookwood, who was attacking some of the students who stayed to fight. Rookwood was stunned by Aberforth Dumbledore, and his fate is unknown. Rosier. First name unidentified, Rosier was sorted into Slytherin during Voldemort's time at Hogwarts and was one of his first followers. He had visited Hogsmeade to wish good luck to Voldemort getting the Defense Against the Dark Arts position. Not much is known about Rosier after that, and it's possible that he's the father of Evan Rosier. Evan Rosier. Possibly related to Drulella Black, Rosier was sorted into Slytherin House in the 1970s and was part of a gang of aspiring Death Eaters, which included Severus Snape. During the First Wizarding War, he was fiercely pursued by Aurors until he was caught by Alistair Moody around the same time as Wilkes. The two resisted arrest, with Rosier blasting a significant part of Moody's nose before being killed. Igor Karkaroff attempted to turn his name in for freedom, but was shocked to learn that Rosier was killed, making this information worthless. Thorfinn Rowle. It's unknown if Rowle was a Death Eater before the Second Wizarding War, but seeing as how Ronald Weasley recognized him from some old Wanted posters, it's quite possible. Whether he was imprisoned in Azkaban or not is unknown. Rowle was one of the Death Eaters who participated in the Battle of the Astronomy Tower and stood guard below the tower, firing curses in every direction. As Gibbon re-entered the battle, Rowle cast a killing curse towards Remus Lupin, but missed and hit Gibbon instead. While fleeing from the castle with the others, Rowle set fire to Hagrid's cabin to stall Harry and Hagrid since Fang was stuck inside. In July of 1997, the trio had triggered Voldemort's tabooed name at Tottenham Court Road, and Rowle and Antonin Dolohov tracked them down. A duel broke out, and Rowle was stunned by Harry. Hermione then modified their memories. Rowle and Dolohov were threatened and punished by Voldemort for letting the three escape. On the 2nd of May, 1998, Rowle had bloodied his lip and had silenced Hagrid after his protest to Harry Potter sacrificing himself. He fought in the second round during the Battle of Hogwarts. His fate is unknown. Selwyn. First name unknown, Selwyn was an active Death Eater during the Second Wizarding War. He participated in the Battle of the Seven Potters and chased down Hagrid and the real Harry. In early 1998, the trio had visited Lovegood's home in Ottery St. Catchpole, hoping to have his daughter back. Mr. Lovegood summoned the Death Eaters hoping to exchange Harry for her. Selwyn and Travers was first to show up, but an erupted horn blew up the house and Selwyn assumed that it was Lovegood's attempt to ambush them. Selwyn tortured and threatened Lovegood, believing him to be lying. Hermione then engineered a plan to get the three of them to escape while proving Lovegood's innocence. It's unknown if Selwyn participated in the Battle of Hogwarts, and his fate is unknown. Severus Snape. Possibly the most bravest Death Eaters on this list, Snape was born to Tobias and Eileen. He lived at Spinner's End, a very low-class neighborhood, and witnessed his Muggle father abuse his mother for being a witch, something that would start his hatred towards Muggleborns. He was sorted into Slytherin House and was friends with Lily Evans and became enemies with the Marauders. He soon fell in the wrong crowd of the soon-to-be Death Eaters, which Lily disapproved of. After graduating, he became a Death Eater and was important in Voldemort's inner circle. In 1981, he had overheard a prophecy involving Voldemort's defeat, but only heard the first half before being kicked out. Learning that Voldemort had marked the Potters for death after telling him about the prophecy, Snape switched sides and joined the Order of the Phoenix as a spy. But on Halloween of that year, Voldemort killed Lily and James, and Snape was devastated. Thinking that the danger was gone, with Voldemort defeated, Dumbledore insisted that he would return and that Harry, as well as everyone, would be in grave danger. From then on, Snape would protect Lily's son. Severus Snape took the position as Potions Master in that same year. In 1996, Dumbledore would suffer a curse with no cure or counterspell. Having a year to live, Dumbledore instructed Snape to kill him. If Snape were to kill Dumbledore, then Voldemort would trust him completely and thus becoming a spy. Throughout the Second Wizarding War after Dumbledore's death, Snape became headmaster and assisted the trio behind the scenes. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Voldemort summoned Snape at the Shrieking Shack. Believing that Snape was the true owner of the Elder Wand since he had killed its original owner, Voldemort murdered Snape. Harry arrived once Voldemort left, and Snape told Harry to take his tears to the Pensieve. Snape died, but after the Second Wizarding War ended, the truth about Snape being a double agent was revealed, and Severus Snape was known as the bravest man anyone has ever known. Travers. Travers became a Death Eater during the First Wizarding War. During the war, Travers killed Marlene McKinnon and her family. Travers was imprisoned in Azkaban for life for this crime. He escaped Azkaban in 1996 and was fairly active during the Second Wizarding War. He participated in the Battle of the Seven Fathers and was pursuing Hermione and Kingsley Shacklebolt and was stunned during the chase. Travers later became head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. At the beginning of 1998, he traveled with Selwyn to Lovegood's home after Mr. Selwyn claimed truthfully that Harry was there. They threatened to kill his daughter if he summoned them under false pretenses, only to see the trio escaped. He later participated in the Battle of Hogwarts and was seen battling Parvati Patil and Dean Thomas with the help of Dolohov and one other Death Eater. His fate after the battle is unknown. Wilkes. First name and gender unknown, Wilkes attended Hogwarts in the 1970s along with Severus Snape and became a Death Eater after graduating. Wilkes fought in several battles during the war and in 1980 was killed while trying to resist arrest. Corban Yaxley. Ending this list is Yaxley. Yaxley was one of the many Death Eaters who fought in the First Wizarding War. After Voldemort's downfall, Yaxley didn't look for his master and avoided imprisonment in Azkaban. After Voldemort's rebirth, Yaxley became an active Death Eater again throughout the Second Wizarding War. In 1997, Yaxley participated in the Battle of the Astronomy Tower and was hit with a full-body bind curse. He was taken to Azkaban but was broken out shortly afterwards. He placed Pius Thickness under the Imperius Curse and he was used as Voldemort's puppet to take over the Ministry, and Yaxley was made the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. In this role, he harassed several Muggle-borns along with Dolores Umbridge. During the end of the infiltration of the Ministry, Yaxley grabbed a hold of Hermione before they could escape using the Floo network. This action caused Yaxley to be taken to Grimmauld Place and forced the trio to abandon their hideout. Yaxley participated in the Battle of Hogwarts and was seen dueling Phileas Flitwick. He was defeated by Lee Jordan and George Weasley, and his fate after the Second Wizarding War is unknown. This video went off the rails a lot, and I didn't anticipate the video to be this long. It was something I had planned since the end of August. Next video is going to be something I had planned before I had moved. I apologize for the watermarks at the bottom. It's the best recording and editing system I could get on my phone. I'm working on a review video, and it's going to have a little more effort into it compared to this one. It does involve Harry Potter, and I'll be posting an update through the community tab. Anyways, thank you for watching. Love you all, and if you can, comment because I don't know why the comments were disabled in my last video. So, happy Halloween!